All right, let's dive into a really fascinating and, let's be honest, a pretty complex chapter in India's freedom struggle, the Khilafat Movement. It's an incredible story of how an international religious issue became this powerful national cause, and in the process completely reshaped the fight against the British.
So, this is the big question we're going to unpack. And at first glance, it seems kind of strange, doesn't it? How on earth could a treaty being signed thousands of miles away in Turkey about the fate of their caliphate spark one of the biggest mass movements in Indian history? Well, to get to the bottom of that, we first have to understand just how explosive the situation was in post-World War I India. So here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll set the scene by looking at the post-war powder keg. Then we'll get into the Khilafat question itself. After that, we'll see how a united front was built, look at their program of protest, and finally, we'll analyze the whole thing's lasting national legacy. It's the best way to see how all these pieces fit together.
Okay, let's jump into our first section, a post-war powder keg. Because you see, before the Caliphate issue even appeared on the radar, India was already simmering. The end of World War I didn't bring peace and quiet. Instead, it created this perfect storm of economic pain, political crackdown, and just widespread public anger.
And you have to understand, this economic pain was everywhere, and it was deep. This wasn't some abstract problem for the elites. Prices for everyday goods were skyrocketing, hitting ordinary people right where it hurt. At the same time, a flood of British imports was forcing Indian factories to shut down, which meant huge job losses. And out in the villages, peasants were getting squeezed with higher rents and taxes. This created a powerful, shared feeling of being wronged by the British across the board.
So you got this economic pressure cooker, and then the British turn up the heat politically. 1919 was just one thing after another. First, they passed the draconian Rowlatt Act, which basically let them imprison anyone without a trial. Gandhi hits back with the Rowlatt Satyagraha, a new wave of national protest. The British response? Brutal. It all comes to a head with the absolute horror of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. And then, to top it all off, the so-called Montfort reforms were seen as a total betrayal, offering no real power at all.
And if that wasn't enough, what came next was just a total failure of British justice. The Hunter Commission, which was set up to investigate the massacre, pretty much let General Dyer off the hook. For so many Indians, that was the final straw. It was crystal clear proof that they could never expect fairness or justice under British rule. Any shred of faith in the system was just gone, setting the stage for something much bigger. So into this incredibly tense situation, a whole new issue gets thrown into the mix. This one had international roots, but it would soon become a powerful national cause here in India, the Caliphate question. First things first, what exactly was the Khilafat, or the Caliphate? Well, for centuries, it was the main institution of leadership for Sunni Muslims. The Sultan of the Ottoman Empire in Turkey held the title of Caliph, or Khalifa, and that made him the symbolic spiritual leader for millions of Muslims all over the globe, including the huge Muslim population right here in India. So, what happened? Well, after Turkey lost in World War I, the victorious allies, led by Britain, came down hard on them with the Treaty of Sevres. This treaty literally tore the Ottoman Empire apart and stripped the Sultan of all his authority as the Caliph. For Indian Muslims, this was a massive deal. It felt like a direct attack by a Christian colonial power on their religious head, a grave insult to Islam itself. So, in response to this, the Khilafat movement in India springs up, and they have three very clear demands. Number one, the Khalifa has to keep control over Muslim holy sites. Number two, he needs to be left with enough land and power to actually function as a spiritual authority. And number three, and this one is absolutely key, the movement also became a way to channel all that growing anti-British anger. Okay, so this is where things get really interesting. How does this very specific Muslim issue become part of a huge, unified national fight? This next part is all about that landmark alliance between the Congress and the Khilafat leaders. So you've got these key players, right? On one side, you have the leaders of the Khilafat movement, the famous Ali brothers, Muhammad and Shaukat Ali, along with other big names like Abu Kalam Azad and Hasrat Mohani. And on the other side, you have the Indian National Congress, where Mahatma Gandhi was quickly becoming the one leader who could really build a bridge between the two communities. And this quote from Shaukat Ali, it tells you everything you need to know about their strategy. This was a very deliberate move. The Khilafat leaders knew they needed a bigger platform, and they saw a chance for a joint Hindu-Muslim movement. And they pointed to one person, Mahatma Gandhi, as the only one with enough respect in both communities to actually lead it. And you've got to remember, this was not a one-way street. Gandhi wasn't just pulled along.
He saw the strategic brilliance of this moment immediately. For him, the Khilafat issue was way more than just a religious problem in Turkey. He called it a golden opportunity, a once-in-a-generation chance to forge real Hindu-Muslim unity and build a truly massive, all-India movement against the British Empire.
So the alliance is in place. The big question is, what are they actually going to do? Our next section looks at how the protest went from writing petitions to launching a full-blown nationwide program of mass non-cooperation. At a joint conference, the leaders laid out this really clear 4-step program. It was basically a blueprint for how to peacefully take apart the machinery of British rule. Step 1. Boycott titles. All Indians were to give back any honors the British had given them. Step 2. Boycott services. That means the civil service, the army, the police. Step 3. Boycott British goods. And the final, most powerful step of all, stop paying taxes. And this is the crucial moment of fusion. These two powerful movements didn't just walk side by side, they officially merged into one. This created a single, unified national struggle with a shared leadership and a shared plan, which just massively amplified its power and reach all across India. All right, let's pull back for a moment and look at the big picture. What was the real, lasting legacy of all this? What was its ultimate impact on the freedom struggle? You know, it's a funny sort of paradox. The whole reason the movement started, the position of the caliph in Turkey, that issue just vanished. Mustafa Kemal Pasha came to power in Turkey, brought in secular reforms, and got rid of the caliphate altogether. But by then, it almost didn't matter. The movement had already made a profound and permanent mark on India. So if the original goal disappeared, what was the point? Well, here's the real legacy. This is what truly mattered. For a critical time, it massively strengthened Hindu-Muslim unity. It brought urban Muslims into the nationalist fight on a scale that had never been seen before. And even more than that, it politicized huge new groups of people: women, students, peasants, artisans, who had always been on the sidelines. In doing that, it completely broadened the base of the Indian National Congress, turning it from an elite club into a true mass movement. So I want to leave you with a big question to chew on. The unity we saw during this time was powerful, no doubt, but it was also fragile. Was this a genuine long-term strategic success that built the foundation for a secular nation? Or was it more of a temporary alliance of convenience based on a religious issue that just couldn't hold up under the political pressures that came later? Historians still debate this, and really understanding this movement is absolutely essential to being a part of that conversation. Thanks for joining us.